So this question is asking for the main idea of the text, and notice the answer choices, right? They're very long summaries. We do not want to come up with our own summary that is just as long, because it's unlikely that it's going to have significant overlap with the actual correct answer. We are much better off finding our own very basic summary, a dumb summary of the passage, and then just testing out the ones that they give us and seeing how well they match with our very simple example. So first things first, though, we're going to dive into the passage, we're going to read it, try to come up with some vague idea of what it's about. Some animal behavior studies involve observing wild animals in their natural environment, and some involve capturing wild animals and observing them in a laboratory. So natural habitat or laboratory. That seems to be just giving us two types of studies here. Each approach has advantages over the other. In wild studies, researchers can more easily presume the animals are behaving normally, and in lab studies, researchers can more easily control factors that might affect the results. But if, for example, the results from a wild study and a lab study of western scrub jays contradict each other, one or both of the studies must have failed to account for some factor that was relevant to the bird's behavior. So all of this is basically just kind of reiterating the beginning part, that there's two types, and maybe this other sentence here, that they have different advantages. So two types of study, both good and bad. I should have used positive and negative there, but that's fine. So that's some dumb summary. That's what I'm hoping for, right? So there's a bit of a mixture here is what we're going for. So main idea of the text. Choice A. When the results of a natural habitat study and those from a lab study of a wild animal such as the western scrub jay conflict, the study in the natural habitat is more likely than the lab study to have accurate results. No, 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 no. This is a classic trap. Classic SAT trap. They want us to compare two things, okay? Or I should say it this way. We can talk about two things without ranking them, right? So this passage is talking about two things, wild studies, lab studies. At no point in this passage does it say one is better than the other. Choice A here is trying to slip that in. And maybe because of your own experience, your own knowledge, your own preferences, whatever it may be, you personally think one type of study would be better. But the passage does not say that. It says they both have advantages, they both have disadvantages, and if there's a conflict, one of them must be wrong. But they're not getting into which one it is. So we have to be very careful that we are not ranking things when we are comparing them. Comparisons are always risky when they show up in answer choices, and here's a good example of why, as it's going too far. Just to say that two things are similar or different does not mean to say that one is better than the other, and that is what this choice is doing. Choice B. Studying wild animals such as the western scrub jay in both their natural habitat and lab settings is likely to yield conflicting results that researchers cannot fully resolve. No, 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 no. So here they're talking about something as being likely to happen, and they're kind of quantifying it in a way, but they never said that it's likely that if we study these things, we're going to have a problem. It just says that sometimes we do have a problem, right? So saying something is possible is, again, not the same as saying that it is likely, right? Possible means there is at least some chance that it could happen, but likely means that it is 50% or more that it is going to happen. So this is quantifying the odds, and they never do that in the passage. Be careful, again, of the comparisons that go too far. Choice C. Wild animals such as the western scrub jay can be effectively studied in their natural habitat and in the lab, but each approach has drawbacks that could affect the accuracy of the findings. This seems much safer, right? It's still making that comparison. There's two types of studies, but at no point in that choice does it prefer one over the other. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. This is a perfect kind of like vague, weak answer. The kind of thing that you probably naturally avoid because your teacher is always like, pick a side, have a thesis, make your point. But when we're summarizing someone else, we don't want to bring in a point that they're not making. We don't want to imagine what their thesis could have been. If they had it, they would have said it. They are not making a strong claim here. So we want a choice that is a very weak summary that doesn't take a side. So C is probably going to be the answer, but let's look at D just to be safe. Differing results between natural habitat and lab studies of wild animals such as the western scrub jay are a strong indication that both of the studies had design flaws that affected the accuracy of the results. This is very negative. And it's very similar to B as well, is it's trying to say that there's definitely going to be something wrong, but that's not the point. It's not saying that these are bad ways of studying things. And so I would say both B and D are overall just wrong because their connotation is wrong. The passage is not negative. It's very neutral. There's good and bad. Here, it's conflicted, right? But B and D are very negative choices. They are both very much about just there's something that's going to go wrong. There's no way to do this right. That's not what the passage is saying. Whereas C It's a little bit more, it's definitely negative. It has this idea of drawbacks, but notice how weak it is, right? It has the word could. It could affect the accuracy of the findings, not necessarily, whereas these ones are saying it's very strong, it's likely. And then also this has the positive of the word effectively, right? So they can effectively be studied in their natural habitat. So again, if we're just going by dumb summary connotations, we were looking for a choice that had a positive and negative. Choice C has both of those things. That is what makes it a good fit. And when choices go too far, usually it's because they're going too far into the positive or too far to the negative when a passage doesn't do that. So just be careful that you don't come up with a conclusion that is not there. Sometimes passages are not saying very strong ideas, and we need a choice that represents that. Weak, vague answers are very often correct on SAT passage questions.